Hello and welcome to Lightways at Life Astrologer with me, Anna Isabel. And I am so very happy to say that my guest today is Kelley Hunter. Hello, Kelley.
Oh, hi. It's always so great to talk with you. Thanks for the invitation.
An absolute joy. And it had to happen because I saw in your newsletter that there's a rather special event that you are involved with that's coming up. So tell me
Yes,
about.
yes. The National Council for Geocosmic Research is one of the main, actually international organizations based in the US. And they are founded on research. Um, and I've done a lot of presentations for them in person and also online. And I am doing one on November 1st, in person and online, about Haumea, which is one of the newly discovered dwarf planet, Kuiper Belt objects, trans-Neptunian objects, whatever you want to call them. And that there is someone else named Paul Kelley speaking on Ceres. And it's going to be an interesting conversation, I think, because Haumea and Ceres, to me, have a lot in common in terms of their earth goddess energy. So that's what I'm speaking on, and you can go to maybe you can put a link underneath
Absolutely. There will
when
be,
we do this.
because what you're doing today is, I think, a taster of what's to come on.
Yeah, a little preview and
Yeah,
little some different angles, and there'll definitely be more, fuller discussion at that presentation. So
brilliant. Well, it's wonderful. I'm somewhat enamored with Haumea, and we are recording this just after the new moon in Libra, and thinking about that love energy that's so beautiful. So tell us, I guess, first of all, about Haumea from an astronomical perspective, so that people understand what she is.
uh-huh. Shall I show some slides? I
That's
might I might do them out of order because to answer your question. Um, here's Haumea in her home territory, the islands of Hawaii. And let me just fast forward a bit to answer your question. So, Haumea astronomically is in this newly discovered section of the solar system called the Kuiper Belt. And we see Pluto on the front side here. And then everything else is mostly farther out than Pluto. But Pluto is a rocky little body that doesn't match the preceding sequence of planets. But all of the Kuiper Belt objects are other Plutos. They're these icy objects, and there's quite a variety. They started naming them for creator deities from different cultures around the world. And that is so exciting to me that we've gone beyond the Greco-Roman pantheon and we have a global representation here of quite a number of mythologies and different cultures. And so here's Haumea, a little farther out than Pluto. And we're also going to be considering Sedna a little bit, that's even beyond the Kuiper Belt. So, so that's what it is. And there are some interesting facts about Haumea as an astronomical body. She's considered, she is considered the most unusual object in the sky. And one of the reasons is because she's egg shaped, or some people call it cigar shaped. So, um, and it rotates end over end. So it has a very unusual orbit, and it has two moons. And there's other just interesting stories and facts about Sedna. But let me back up here and start off with saying aloha nui loa, which means very great love and peace to you in Hawaiian. And these Kuiper Belt objects, the culture they come arise from, the culture they represent the creation story of, I think is a very important factor in these new bodies when we study them. I don't think we can take them out of their cultural context completely. And the Hawaiian culture is so rich and old. It goes back, many people say, to Lemuria, and has a lot of magic to it. And it has several islands, as we know. And what I'm showing you here is the north shore of Kauai, which is the northernmost island, basically. And the sea was very active when I was there. I took this picture last January, and there's nothing between Kauai and Alaska. I mean, there's open sea. So the waves can come in very strongly. And the sea, of course, is an intimate part of the culture. So there she is. Let's look at more of her astronomy, astrology, and get to know her a little better. She was the creator goddess. She's the Hawaiian goddess of childbirth. So she was pregnant with everything and gave birth to everything. The fruits and fish and humans and plants and rainbows and everything. And after she would give birth, she would renew herself, almost give birth to herself again in this kind of renewal process. So she's very powerful. She has her orbit is 283 years compared to Pluto's 248. So she has this amazing generative capacity. And all of these Kuiper Belt objects, in my view, have or invite us into a level of quantum consciousness where we can tap into the whole sacred geometry matrix of the universe and tap into anything that we can resonate with. So she's one of these directors of that. She's one of these windows into this capacity. So I have here a mini ephemeris where anybody listening can look up what sign is your Haumea in. And we note here that she has just gone in to Scorpio from Libra. So when she was in Libra, as she was starting to transition into Scorpio in 2022, I started wondering, like, how does she decide what she wants to give birth to? Because that's a very Libra question, right? What choices are you making? What are you deciding? And it's a sign of relationship. So I started just contemplating that she was creating in relationship, period. I mean, dot, 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 you know.
Hmm.
And then when she started going into Scorpio, it was like there's something deep inside being evoked that's this powerful desire to create whatever is coming from that deep inner place. And so to me, that is like the invitation that has just changed. We're no longer deciding or choosing in the same way as we were. There's something deeper, a deep erotic desire to be. Eros was the god of desire, and he emerged from chaos with Gaia or Haumea, Earth Mother energy, the desire to be, to create. And so there's a new invitation that's stirring deep inside us from, I think, a soul level in some way in this new cycle of Haumea that lasts for 25 years or so.
Do you know, I'm wondering about this because I felt that that question that you asked is incredibly powerful. What is it that she's wanting to give birth to? How does she decide what to birth? And I think that that's an extraordinary question to ask. And I'm thinking about Scorpio and the regeneration
Yes. Yeah.
factor of Scorpio. And I guess maybe there is a question in this in the back of my mind as I'm speaking. And the question is this: given that she is a goddess of creation, and so if we think of it as almost Taurian energy, because of that link between Taurus and the earth and the fertility of the earth, and we think of Scorpio, and she's so I maybe I'm asking whether you feel that her energy, because we're trying to kind of grapple with what her energy is if we just think of her outside of a sign and just her.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I tend to think of her as being very Taurus and maybe Cancer in her energy. And then would we be looking at that as through the Scorpio filter as the regeneration of a connection to feeling, to nurturing, and to earth that has been lost? I don't know. What do you feel?
Well, one thing is I don't want to limit the reach of these Kuiper Belt objects as if they rule signs or something.
Oh, yes, of course. That was
Part of the myth of Haumea is has to do with the rocks and has to do with how one of her daughters, Namaka, is a powerful water energy that when Pele is the volcano goddess, and Pele is another daughter of Haumea. When Pele sends out her fiery earth to destroy whatever's there and head to the sea, and Namaka throws a big wave at it. I have a picture of that. Let's see if I can find it. Where is she? Uh-oh. Wow. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself for sure. Maybe I didn't put it in the mix. Oh, there it is. See down here. This
yes.
is Pele is throwing her fire. It comes down to the sea and the wave engulfs it and it's a cloud. But then there's new land that is made. And that volcano energy, that volcano rock is very strong on the islands. And it has a lot of electromagnetic energy, which is like life force. So I'm exploring this idea that you brought up. And this is one of her daughters. I think and the moons of Haumea are Namaka, who is this strong water energy. I like to call, water beings mermaids, but this is not a sparkly mermaid like Salacia is. This is a powerful, the surfing waves and the currents and so this is pretty strong water, the power of water. And then the other daughter is Hi'iaka, who was born from her mouth and became the goddess of the hula. And hula is so essential to this culture because it's a song and dance languaging, thanking the earth. And it's so much a part of their culture. It's beautiful, and the language is so nuanced in the way they put syllables together. It's almost like Vedic mantras that put syllables together and make powerful soundings that change our brainwaves. And the language is like that. It's multi-dimensional, we could say. And if we're going to go to an element at all, I like to think about these Kuiper Belt objects as being etheric. The ether is that invisible plasma matrix that makes up the universe. And all of the physical elements come out of that ether that can be non-physical and then turn into physical. So that's why these creator deities are so powerful and meaningful right now. Because if we can tap into with intention or desire or what it is that's emerging that is needed or wanted or would be beautiful, we can create it.
I love that. I absolutely love it. It's a very exciting
Yes.
concept to work with, and consequently a very exciting energy to work with. And and there it is, earth and water, exactly where my instincts were leading me when I was thinking about Taurus and Cancer.
Yes. Yes, indeed so. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Yeah. And
So go ahead.
I was just going to say, to me, moons of planets are like different attributes of the planets. It's like those Hindu gods and goddesses with so many arms. So these are two of her capacities, two of her subtones, in a way we could say.
Hmm. So what do you feel she birthed whilst in Libra?
Hmm. Mm. Whoa. I haven't even thought about that.
But I was just thinking back to those dates,
Yeah.
early 90s, wasn't it, when she went into Libra? Uh,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
And
So,
that was such an interesting time. The early 90s had like a lot of Capricorn energy, had the Uranus Neptune conjunction. That was a new, however many year cycle.
mm,
And something about relationship. And maybe, because let's see, that was when Pluto was also, oh no, it was in Scorpio going into
yes,
Sagittarius.
I was just going to say it's Scorpio in 95 or around that time, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's about when it was changing Pluto.
Yeah,
Actually, let's answer this question a little bit by bringing in Pluto.
lovely.
So, back to my island picture. So, when I was here on this North Shore of Kauai, and these big waves are coming in. They don't look too big in this picture, but they were. And so a big wave would come in, and surfers weren't even surfing. It was so powerful. And then the wave would come in and crash on the shore, and then the undertow would pull the wave back, even while a new wave was coming in. And so when the outgoing wave met the incoming wave, there was like a ripple of foam, across where those waves were meeting. And then the outgoing wave would come on the other side. You'd see it go out, and then it would meet the next incoming wave, and it would do that foamy thing, and then it would weaken a little. So the incoming waves, took a while, but they did overcome the outgoing waves. So I was thinking about this as Haumea birthing the incoming waves while Pluto was pulling out, the outgoing waves and pulling sand with it and, kind of the destructive side of Pluto while Haumea was coming in, because these two were both changing sign at the same time. So let's look at this a little more. These two, this is their positions like now. We're in, right after the new moon in Libra in October 2025. And they're in a long-term square. So here's, like, you can see the waves a little easier. Um, it was so dramatic and loud. Um, and oh, while I'm looking at this here are some wonderful sources about Hawaiian culture. Um, a couple of things from Sam Potter, who does the Return to the Wild series. He goes all over the world, and he has he grew up in Kauai. So he did two beautiful videos of life in Hawaii with the hula, and how hula is such a representation of the culture itself, and also some of the other traditional ways of connecting with the land in very intimate ways. Um, and then Peter Santinello has another one where he's visiting one of the oldest family property in Molokai with a man who has generations back of living in this area and knows the land intimately. So, and then I have a wonderful essential oil maker, Doreen DeSayers, who was so interested in Haumea. She wanted to make a special essential oil blend for Haumea. So that's available on her website. It's so tropical smelling. It's beautiful. Anyway, back to Pluto. So here is March 20th. So it's a spring equinox in 2025, or fall equinox if you're in the southern hemisphere. So we had Pluto at 3 Aquarius at that point, and Haumea was at 2. So they've been in this long-term square. And one of the reasons I'm mentioning this is because this is when Haumea was going into Gemini, changing sign and adding to quite the picture we have going.
I think you might mean Sedna, yes?
What did I say?
Haumea.
Oh, well, we're
Yeah.
talking about Haumea. So yeah, Sedna. So sorry. Yeah. Sedna
No,
is
I just
very far out. Now,
people who might
Sedna,
be confused.
well, yeah, thanks for correcting me. Sometimes I do that. I overlap things, and we're overlapping here. So in their energy alignments. So to me, Sedna, she's out near the Oort cloud. She's well beyond the Kuiper belt. So she's the entryway into a whole nother realm of the solar system, and therefore of our potential in consciousness. Her orbit's like 12,000 years or so around the Earth, whereas we're talking about Pluto 248 and Haumea 283 years. You know, Sedna takes us well beyond. And this is part of the deep sea energy that we were just contemplating with the ingoing and outgoing waves. And they are sourced from farther north, which is Sedna's territory. And she has a traumatic history if you look at her myth as a human experience. But she's really not human. She is a goddess. And her body parts became sea creatures. Haumea gave birth through her body parts. She gave birth through her arms. She gave birth through her mouth. She gave birth to, different body parts. It can be birthed. So in a way, these two have a little rapport. And Sedna has rapport with Pluto in terms of they're both a level of stripping down, of dismemberment and re-empowerment. So when you talk about regeneration, these planets both have that. And so does Haumea because she renews herself after she gives birth. So she's regenerating herself so she can continue to create. So all three of these have that recreative, regenerative energy that is enhanced when they're interacting with each other.
What do you feel um, is the relationship between Haumea and Pluto as a square?
Well, I was born in 1949, and from that year on through the whole decade of the 50s and even a little later, Pluto and Haumea were conjunct. First in Leo and then in Virgo. So it's interesting that from that time to this time, that's like 70 plus decades, they've been moving into this square that's an activation. It's like those waves interacting in a powerful way. And to me, squares are like that. I don't think squares are negative. I think they have you have to take them on, you know. They're calling you to activate, to work with this energy. What can you make of this energy? And exactly, what does this square offer? And to some extent, Pluto going into Aquarius and Haumea going into Scorpio, those are the two most different signs in my book. There's Aquarius, like fixed air, kind of it's the ability to step back and see the larger picture, gain a perspective. Aquarius doesn't really like to dive in like Scorpio does, which is I'm in it, I'm immersed, I'm feeling it. And there's Pluto. I'm going to watch. I'm going to see how this is going. You can go into that deep, deep area and feel it out and generate that power of desire. I'm going to keep a perspective on it and kind of watch that process and be stimulated in my perspective on that process. So they can really, like, it's like a dolphin or a sea turtle or a whale. They live under the water, but they have to surface now and again and take a new breath of air, get that water out and take a new breath of air so they can stay underwater longer. So, in a way, that's kind of what's happening.
It's an interesting combination because
Mm,
Uranus is also conjunct Sedna. So we
yeah,
have Uranus and Sedna.
yeah.
And although, there's this emphasis then on air because of Pluto being in Aquarius and Sedna and Uranus being in Gemini, Haumea kind of stands out for being very different because to me, her energy is much lighter and much more about life than it is linked with the god of the underworld and all of that
Oh,
anguish and anger that Sedna must had experienced and yes, out of her anger something good came, but nevertheless there's a heap of pain there that I see, that Sedna and Pluto share. Whereas I feel Haumea is just this creature of creation and light, and it's almost like manifestation without boundaries, or without limits, actually, rather than boundaries.
I think that is true of the Kuiper Belt objects.
And she feels different to me in her energy than Pluto and Sedna. Um,
Well, interestingly, her discovery process was very unusual as well because she was cited by a team in California and in December of 2004. And they were, getting together some information about her, and they had used plates from earlier. And there was a team in Spain that found those same plates and announced the discovery of Haumea before the other team did, because Mike Brown, the main team leader, his wife had just given birth and he was on paternity leave. So
Oh,
they made the announcement, and the other team made the announcement. And so the other team wanted to name Haumea, I hope I pronounced this close to correct, Etachina, who was a goddess of the underworld in the Etruscan culture of some ancient Spanish culture. And so that name fit in with the Kuiper Belt objects closer to Pluto that do have underworld names. Whereas Mike Brown's team suggested, and I think it was that from their Hawaiian member, suggested the name Haumea as a creator goddess from Hawaii, and also honoring the fact that one of the team members had just become a father and there had just been a birth. So she has this undercurrent of underworld goddess energy.
well, it is interesting because the egg suggests life as well. So,
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
here they are discovering this egg, and one of them is about to become a father. I think that that's very interesting, but
Yeah.
fascinating that somebody else wanted to name her um, as, from a connection to the underworld again. Um, Interesting that, but I do think it's significant that the choice ended up being creation and birthing rather than underworld, because ultimately that's what was chosen. And I
Well, yes,
so
all
that
the objects midway into the Kuiper Belt were getting these new names, not the underworld names.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
so
it worked out because both teams got honored, but neither
yeah,
one can claim, the whole thing. So Haumea is uh, her own energy, her own self-creation energy.
that's it. That's what I've been searching for. With the feeling I get with Haumea is that she's about the joy of creation.
Oh,
That's what I was looking for. It's
okay,
the
yeah.
it's joy of creation, and that's very different to Sedna, and it's certainly very different to Pluto. It's a very different energy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
You're saying Haumea doesn't carry as much trauma with her.
That's exactly what I feel with her.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I feel with her. Um, but the other two, yeah, it's heavy duty stuff. And I don't know that Pluto carries trauma with himself, but he certainly symbolizes that, for everybody who's around him. And I think with Sedna, clearly there is a
Oh.
big history there.
Maybe with Pluto, we have a choice if we want to consider it trauma or the opportunity for rebirth.
Yes, I think that that is very true.
It
And
does scrape down to the bottom of some of our intense stuff and our shadows, but there's also a kind of renaissance energy with that as well.
there is, and I think with him, you know, he doesn't, is that expression, doesn't take prisoners. He knows he'll see right through any of the, well, any of dissembling that we might be trying to do.
Oh.
And he's going to go, no, that's not why you did that, is it? Now, this is
Mm.
the truth. And I think
Yeah.
that's why we experience him as being brutal, is because he lifts the veil on any illusions that we might have about ourselves, because that's what he is. He's looking at us, and he's measuring and working out what the soul is. And so, but I think that if we work with him, we get to that point of regeneration, which is
And empowerment.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel that that's very relevant with Sedna. That's where I feel that connection, because
Mm.
it's like Sedna is the other side of the Pluto transit, when
That's for sure.
yeah, when you've had the trauma and suddenly you come out of it and you realize who you are. Almost I think maybe she reminds me a little bit of Persephone in that sense, of the trip into the underworld, and then emerging as queen, and
Mm.
it
Mm. Well,
feels,
that might be the Echechina part.
yes,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
it certainly feels like that with Sedna for me, that
Ah.
she's been dragged into something of a loss of innocence. That's why I was thinking that
Oh.
loss of innocence.
Naivete. Naivete.
Yeah,
And that's very Persephone-like.
exactly. And
Yeah.
then I'm
Yeah.
looking at her and I'm thinking, yeah, to discover that your father is willing to do this to you, that's a real loss of innocence. And then there's the rage that comes with it, and then there's the birthing of something new with her as well.
Yes, and she taps to me because of her long orbit. She taps into deep, deep, old collective
Yes.
trauma. She's not entirely personal, but when she is honored by the shaman in the Arctic, who travels down to the underworld with a special ivory comb and combs the seaweed out of her hair, tangled hair. She's grateful, she's being honored, and she will allow the people to take her sea creatures for their food and protection. So there's a level of nurturing, of feeding that comes from her as well. And that's like Haumea. Haumea has a magic stick called the makale, and she can put it in the water, and sea creatures will come for the people to take for their food. So she has like can always call the creatures in the same way that Sedna also allows her creatures to be taken, to be to feed the people.
That's absolutely wonderful. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so
Yes,
exciting.
we're looking at this, and let us remember, yes, that Uranus went in to Gemini in July to wake Sedna up in our consciousness. I call Uranus the awakener. So Uranus is awakening our engagement with Sedna to a new level. So we're going to be learning so many new things, about all the energy that we've just been talking about, and the sparring, the square with Haumea and Pluto also, and Haumea being now in Scorpio, which is ruled in part by Pluto. So this is, it's very meaningful, and I think this is um, depending on your generation, like we were just looking at a chart we were looking at the early 90s when Pluto was in Scorpio. So Haumea is now going over people who have Pluto in Scorpio, going over their Pluto. So even while Pluto and Haumea are squaring each other, some people are experiencing Haumea conjuncting their Pluto, transiting their Pluto for a good a good 2 or more years. So deep diving.
I was just thinking too about, this is Pluto under obviously co-ruler of Scorpio. It's almost like Haumea is coming to visit him by being in Scorpio. Um,
Hey, hey, I see you.
yeah, exactly. He's going to recognize her. And I think it's interesting because again, we're coming back to two air signs. Lots of stuff happening, that's very relevant in air. And there's Haumea in water. And
Oh, mm.
I can't help but feel that that's a very good thing because air can really get lost in or lose heart, and we need something
Yeah.
in water to remind us that,
Yeah. Air signs can rationalize feelings.
and get into intellectual arrogance that is
Yeah.
incredibly
Oh,
cruel and destructive.
especially Pluto and Aquarius.
Yeah,
And that's the artificial intelligence question, that we're involved with, with the positive potential and the shadow side, coming up.
yeah.
So here's our recent full moon. And I thought it was a good way to take the next step with this consideration of Haumea and Pluto, which are very closely squared here. Pluto just at this point, uh, turn, turning to forward motion. Is that right? I
uh
might have some misinformation here.
okay,
So
so he's retrograde at that point.
yes, oh yes, yes, but Pluto turned direct. Let me get my handy ephemeris out. Pluto turned direct like any moment. Let's see.
Yes, I think, yeah, it's,
Oh, and yes, October 15th. So after this full moon.
yes.
Yeah,
It has to be because he's not going to go back to north.
right,
So
right,
yeah.
right. Yeah. So, and that's a pretty close square then. So, and then, yeah, for that full moon, we had Mercury there, Mars in Scorpio. So we were getting a big dose of Haumea activation in both our mental and our action planets.
Yes.
And we see, the Neptune just heading back into Pisces and the Uranus in Scorpio with Sedna, I mean, with in Gemini with Sedna right there. So that's an interesting formation. And anytime we have something in early Libra that is activated, you mentioned the new moon we had at the end of Libra, which
Yes.
immediately the moon moved to conjunct Haumea, and then the sun is conjuncting Haumea shortly. Like if this is the 22nd of October, it will have happened by the time people see this video, right? I think so.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
So that's so interesting. So, and then, so yes, we have the square with Pluto and Haumea. And then in this particular chart, and to some extent ongoing, Haumea is in a quincunx with Neptune and a quincunx with Uranus, making the pivot point, which I call the hand of goddess. Because
Mm.
what is it called? The hand of God, the finger of God.
Finger
This
of
is
God.
the
Yes,
finger
they
of goddess. Yeah. So Haumea is very activated here, very activated. So there's her question. What do you want? What do you most deeply desire? And how can you strip down all those more superficial desires to get to some deep core soul desire. And
Well, sorry.
I just want to make one more point. One of the reasons I'm putting it that way is because she's right next to the black moon. This is the true black moon position. And the black moon is definitely about soul essence and coming from the soul, not ego, which is a big problem or wrestling, I should say, with people who have Pluto and Haumea conjunct in Leo. The whole wrestling with the ego that happens with that generation, my generation, it can be pretty profound. So, your
Well,
comment.
I was just thinking, about this particular time of year. Is going to be for a long time. This time of year is going to be very significant, given her position in Scorpio. We're really going to be. This is, I guess, maybe what I want to say is this is fertile ground for
Yes, good one. That's very
for
good.
healing. It's we always think about spring as the time for birth, but I think this is always at this time of year. There is that opportunity to lift the veil and
Very thin veil.
see the truth within ourselves.
Mm.
Always think about lifting the veil, meaning um, being able to have mediumistic experiences connecting with the other world, other dimensions. But I'm talking about lifting the veil so that we can see what might be festering in the cupboard. Um, and when we do that, then there's the opportunity for regeneration. But now that Haumea is active in Scorpio, I think it's going to bring additional depth to this time of year. And I think too,
Mm.
could well be that regenerative process accelerates.
Oh, I think it must. I think it must with Uranus awakening Sedna and Haumea challenging the new positions of Uranus and Neptune. Like, don't do the superficial illusion side of, don't do the projection side of Neptune. No, no, no.
Mm.
We want to go really deep and get to the most centered place that this Aries, zero Aries can bring us to, the 0 point of being really deeply centered. So we are like centered really deep in that Haumea gestation. What are we seeding? What are we desiring? What to become more aware of our intentions, of our the potential of looking at what can be dark or unknown, scary and fearful, but the other side of that is love. The other side of that is creation. We How can we tap into that deep center that's, you know, takes us right down to the core of the earth that's changing, and this is part of the Haumea energy. She is she and that this is kind of the rock side, right? This is the volcano side. This is the side that is making new land or land re-arising. And then we have Sedna, the deep sea goddess. There's so many mysteries. Air signs like to understand. Just let me understand it, and okay. And it's like Scorpio goes, the mystery is too great. Your mind cannot grasp it. You know, it's that deep feeling it. It's trusting ourselves too, that we have this capacity to create and redeem and regenerate.
So I want to take you back to Sedna because I'm just thinking about what you're saying, and how really we need to remember that feeling is really where it's at. That's, feeling is the thing. Because our heads, okay, logic is good, but it has limitations. It's
Yeah.
actually very limited because it's limited in imagination too. So you lock yourself in logic, it's very difficult to imagine. And I'm thinking about Sedna, who is really, again, all about feeling. And funnily enough, so is Pluto. Pluto is also to an extent about feeling, but certainly um, Sedna is. And there she is in the sign to do with communication. And I'm just wondering whether we're entering an era not of technical communication as we all think we are because of AI, etc. Yeah, that exists. But actually, I'm wondering whether Sedna is saying, no, that's a red herring, folks. Actually, it's communication that's unspoken through feeling. And it being an air sign, perhaps there being some element of telepathy as well. What do you feel about that?
Oh, absolutely. I think, I think a lot about frequency and vibration. And what is the heart is the greatest radiator of frequency and vibration. So when we're coming from our deep, heartfelt, soul connected energy, we're radiating that out in a way that colors our aura, we could say, and conveys to other people. And so, if we're going to this deeper level of ourselves, we're going to be able to pick up those signals. And I do think that the air signs fit into that because Uranus has to do with the higher mind, and so does Aquarius. Aquarius and the Gemini. So there's this higher mind, activation informing our lower minds. So we're going to get the mental limitations out of the way. And, that's what we can be doing now with the Neptune Saturn back in Pisces. Just wash that all away and let those feelings flood through and see if you want to engage the feeling coming through or if you want to alchemize it with the power of Scorpio. Because if you don't like what you're feeling, you can change it. You're the one who can change that. And Scorpio has that deep regenerative capacity to alchemize negativity into positivity or, kind of change the frequency, let us say.
Yes, I like that. And so maybe one last question, because listening to you always makes me think about things. So I was just wondering, when you were talking about the higher mind, could we say that this is an invitation for the activation of the crown chakra?
I I've come to have a sense that we have all kinds of different chakras that go up to different dimensions. And
Yes.
also
Yeah.
in ancient Vedic teachings, they talk about the holy womb chakra, which is where the Divine Mother puts our soul spark through every lifetime. And I associate that now with the black moon. That's very connected to the womb energy, this holy womb energy, and that it's the black moon is also very intimately involved with the moon's orbit around the Earth and the nodes of the moon. So, the moon bursts us into human life, but the black moon is that soul spark and what's coming through that soul spark in our whole history. And if we can heal some of that trauma that is, it can be ancestral, it can be past life, it can be collective. I think a lot of the collective trauma of unhealed traumas from the past, like the sinking of Atlantis, how many of us were there? How many of us are being challenged to create a different ending to that story or revive the best of what was there? And Lemuria, which has ancient teachings that have been carried through, especially, the Hawaiian philosophy and teachings. So I think Sedna's, not Sedna, well, Sedna's doing her own, deep sea, what do I want to say, helping us understand what's so deeply down there and
Mhm.
what's getting stirred up. And then Haumea is the like Lemurian creation energy. And they have a beautiful creation story that is very aligned with modern, kind of leading edge science.
Mm. Wow. So this is beautiful, and I like the idea here also about the healing of collective trauma, because we have mille millennia's worth of collective trauma to be um, to be healed. So this then could well be what we're looking at in terms of the potential for the regeneration that Haumea in Scorpio is bringing in,
Mhm.
and how it links with Pluto being in Aquarius, because it's a collective um, energy. And then I think with Sedna, I think yes, I was thinking for those who are unfamiliar with other chakras, I was thinking crown chakra because of the mind. And yes, absolutely, taking us beyond that, being an important part of it. So that's wonderful. Would you like to finish sharing if you're done?
Um, yeah, I've been going backwards and forwards. Let me
Ah,
just,
as we were back at the beginning, I thought that you were done.
no, this is the end. This is the end and the beginning. Um,
Ah, okay.
yeah, I just do want to introduce my Planetary Gods and Goddesses coloring book, which a lot of these graphics were taken from that different people colored, because this was a key part of my research into a certain roster of the Kuiper Belt objects, and doing it through art and it very intuitive. It was a very intuitive process. So that's my favorite kind of mode of, we could call it research. I'm not much of a data person. I like the qualitative, the experiential, the mythopoetic, the creating with the energies, creating with the creative energies.
Yeah,
So that was a really fun thing to do, and it's available on, say, Amazon for sure.
I love that. And with Christmas not far away, I can imagine this being a fabulous gift. So, yes, thank you for that, Kelly. And so remind everyone about this event that you're doing then as you stop sharing. Do remind everyone about your event.
So it's November 1st. It's noon Eastern, U.S. Eastern time, and it is through the NCGR Boston group. And it's live. You can come to Belmont, Massachusetts if you're close enough. But it's also going to be live streamed, so you can watch it that way. And I'm going to send you, and Isabel, if you would just post the link to their site that you can register. So I'll send you that link and you can share it.
I'll do that. And along with your website, which can you please tell everyone what it is?
The
Your own.
website,
Yes, your
okay,
own.
w.heliastar.com. That's Helia, the feminine sun goddess. heliastar.com.
And of course, there is your beautiful Substack, which I love.
Oh, I love it too. It's so stimulating creatively because you can use so many methodologies and modalities, and I post there at least every full and new moon. So that's starlady.substack.com.
And I'll have a link to all of that in the description box, along with the link to my own websites and my own Substack. So do check it out. Kelley, thank you so very much for your time today and for such a stimulating conversation once again.
Oh, I so enjoy talking with you because your questions are always deep in the conversation and bring out new aspects that I learn a lot from. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a fantastic week. Goodbye.
Aloha.